We're recording. So mine is a little bit more about the ethics. Not even the ethics, but because you'll see in a sec, I'm not really criticizing AI itself. But basically, I don't think we're gonna get the AI that we want, like the AI that has all the amazingly good possibilities that we're looking for. And the art is about, or the group is about new media art. And my argument at the end will be like, why artists need to make technology as well. But so how I'm gonna do this is first I wanna talk a bit about what is AI, then I'll talk about the good uses of AI, and then my critique is incentives and where they're leading us, and then and then the bad AI, what we're on track to get, and then hopefully what we can do about it. So beginning, and I should also say almost all the images I will use were made with DALL-E a while ago, and my interest there is to critique when people say that AI art has no soul, because if I drew this, it would be incredible. But just because I told you I didn't draw it, now it's like, oh, anyone could do that, right? But in order to do it, I used a bunch of artists that I like and I gave it a name and said, do this painting by these 5 artists and do a deconstruction of it and make it a collage. Like, that's art to me, I don't know. Just because I made a bunch of them at once doesn't mean it's not. So why are we here today? This is Sundar Pichai, he's the CEO of Google. And he said AI is one of the most profound things humanity has ever worked on, more profound than electricity or fire. And I agree with him. That's why we're talking. And what he means by that is what these discoveries or inventions did for our position in the universe, basically. Like fire changed the course of evolution so that we could grow big brains instead of needing so much energy in our stomach. And electricity eliminated nighttime. Now we have light all the time. So AI has that level of capability to change drastically everything we think about how to live. And the discussion I wanted to sort of moderate is this is the cultural discussion that's going on right now. Is you have optimists, skeptics, and pessimists. Techno-optimists basically believe just accelerate everything and it'll work itself out in the end. The market figures itself out. Skeptics say there's problems with that. There's good parts about AI, but there's bad parts that we need to mitigate, and we can debate on how to mitigate them. And pessimists say we are rapidly descending to extinction and we need to stop. Yes? That's exactly what I was about to do. So raise your hand if you consider yourself an optimist. You think it'll work itself out? Skeptics and pessimists? Yeah. So hopefully, this is what I consider myself. I'm a tech optimist. I believe in tech, but I'm a political pessimist. Yeah. So basically, I think there's a ton of cool things that AI could do, and I think our world is not set up to make those happen, and I am very pessimistic about anything getting on track. So that's where I'm at. So yeah, first section, what is AI? We have this word, artificial intelligence. What do we mean by that? So you know what artificial means, what does intelligence mean? So this is Rene Descartes, he's the I think, therefore I am guy. And he had this idea that reason is what makes us human. Humans have reason, animals don't, machines don't. And what reason is it gives us true understanding and intentional thought. So whether or not I agree with him about that's what separates us as humans, this struck me as a perfect definition of what we're trying to give machines. We want a machine that has true understanding and intentional thought, and that would be artificial intelligence. So there's 3 ways to try and put reason in a machine. And the first way is just to program explicit instructions. Just tell it, if this happens, then do this. If this happens, then do this. And as long as you stay within the parameters of those instructions, it'll appear to be intelligent. But I represented this with a pawn because it's the least flexible of the options. And brute force, this is where most programming happens, is you basically abstract a human thought process into an algorithm. And now, instead of being explicit, you're basically giving it a thought process in order to manage things. And that is very flexible, but it's still like a knight. And then what we have now is what I call mimic AI, which is we said, let's try and mimic what the brain does and give it a neural network. And now, instead of using human thought processes or heuristics, the neural network will figure out its own heuristic. And this is by far the most flexible we've got, but I'm still calling it the queen because it's not the holy grail of AGI, which would basically just be an android like a human. And so I want to explain these a little bit further with a history of chess bots. Anybody play chess in here? Yeah, if you've played a chess bot, humans lost to chess bots long ago. No human can beat a chess bot. But if you were going to program a chess bot, my first thought would be, okay, why don't we just program all the possible moves? Like, it's a finite game. But the problem is there's 10 to the 40 possible board positions, which is an absurd number. And to wrap your head around that, there's 10 to the 20 milliseconds since the Big Bang. Okay? And that 10 to the 40 isn't double that, it's times itself 20 more times. So, but there's only about 1 million likely board positions if both players know chess and make normal moves. So it's not impossible to have like a million lines of code. So you could do this as long as the human player stayed within what you programmed, it would appear to be intelligent. They would say, it seems to know every move I'm going to make. So this would be like the beginning stages of AI trying to give a machine reason. And we kind of upgraded from that and said, let's try and give it a thought process. Like, let's make an algorithm, let's assign each piece of value. That way you can evaluate the board position with a number. And then you could just give it a search and evaluate algorithm and tell it to maximize the evaluation. So this is basically what humans do. We just say, if I make this move, then that would be good for me, but they have these moves, and both the computer and the machine can search as deep as their computational resources allow, and the bot will just have bigger memory and faster processing, and so the bot always wins. So yeah, and this is Kasparov, greatest player at the time at least, losing to a machine in '96. So that's when I was born. It's been 28 years since then, and this isn't even close to the AI we have now. The humans have not beaten machines since this. And this was a real breakthrough, like he said, in 2017. So Go, has anyone ever seen this documentary? Highly recommend it. What was interesting to me about this documentary was that the AI team were clearly being depicted as the villains by everyone else. Like, everyone else was like, they thought the Go player was like fighting on behalf of humanity. And when he won a game, they were like, okay, the world's not over yet. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but it was just interesting of like, everyone didn't want the AI to win. And the reason why, so Alpha Zero, you might have heard of that, that was their chess bot. But it's not that interesting because we had already won chess without neural networks. So everyone thought Go was this game to crack. So remember when I said that chess had 10 to the 40 possible positions? Go has 10 to the 170. Like like a Googleplex is 10 to the 100. Like, this is insane. So you can't calculate it. You can't do a search and evaluate. None of our previous methods of AI worked. So in 2017, they found a way to actually use neural networks. Computing got fast enough. And they made a Go bot that now can beat any Go player. This guy was considered the greatest Go player of all time. And because Go is so complex, Go players are like, whenever they make a move, they consider it a beautiful move, not like a brilliant. It's like they have intuition and a sense of aesthetics about it. So it was seen as a very deeply human activity. And neural networks became able to calculate what to do in 2017. And this is where I was going to explain more about how neural networks work, but hopefully the multimodal AI thing at the beginning, kind of summarize that a little bit. Uh, I mean, a quick like demystification of it is that these would be called neurons, and a neuron is literally just a function that numbers come in, a calculation happens, and numbers come out. And again, I don't fully understand it, so somehow connecting all of these with an ability to fire or not fire, the more you put data in and tell it this equals this, it adjusts internally its weights, its calculations, and at the end, it's made to be able to predict whatever happens next based on what you input to it. And another interesting part of it is that they really are trying to mimic the brain in that you'll have multiple neural networks together, and one of them will do, like, it'll process the pixel data, and the other will process, like, the whole image, and they come together. They're really trying to make a brain. So a quick note about technological metaphors. This is kind of niche, but it's become a hobby horse of mine after I read this book. We use these words and we forget that they're metaphors. So machines don't like think. We say it thought of an answer. It doesn't think. It doesn't figure out or understand, or at least that is the claim. We're trying to know if it is understanding. Just as humans don't actually calculate or run processes or download information, these are computational metaphors. Before computers, the most complex machine was a steam engine. And that's where the idea of blowing off steam comes from. It's a metaphor. We don't literally blow off steam. We use these metaphors so much and we forget that they are, and a lot of us don't think enough about it to know that there are really important sort of implications of whether or not we are computers or whether or not computers can be human. So that's actually very important to think about. But that is what AI is. Now I want to kind of talk a little bit about what we want, like why are we even building it in the first place? What's the promise? And if you are a skeptic or a pessimist, like I, try to pretend that we live in an ideal world where incentives could actually lead to this. So the first thing that's really cool is educational and learning support. So I know, how many of you have used ChatGPT? Like, use it regularly? Like, I've used it more and more and more over time. And like, I used it in making this presentation. I used it in creating this meetup group and figuring out things to do. And so there's a ton of things, examples I could talk about with cool uses of ChatGPT. But just a simple thing on education is you can just make any text interactive. Like, if you've ever read a difficult book, you can tell it to pretend to be the author and ask questions about it. So it helps with learning a lot. And this is a book, AI 2041, it basically gives 10 short stories about what could exist in 2041, and then explains some of the technical detail behind it. And one of the things it said were like hyper-personalized learning assistants. Like, you have a personal AI, and it's your teacher, hyper-adapted to you. So, neurodivergence, et cetera, everyone can have the learning capabilities that they need. So that would be a very good thing. It'd make a lot of things cheaper. Another example is creative collaboration in arts. There's obviously a huge discussion about AI in art, AI art, what it can do, what it shouldn't do. But at the end of the day, at least right now, it is a collaborative partner. Like I said, I've used it for, it basically just accelerates a thought process. Like, if I have an idea, I could spend, a couple hours trying to write out everything I think about it, or I could just quickly prototype it essentially with ChatGPT and say like, oh, if I wanted to do this, what would it have to look like? And I get to, do that in 5 minutes instead of 2 hours, and then test out a bunch of other ideas as well. And then, in 2041, who knows, there would be completely new mediums of art. Just like when we invented the camera, and we no longer need painting to do photorealistic. Now painting gets its own sort of abstraction and camera photography becomes its own art form. So I am not opposed to AI in art at all. I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities with it. Community planning. Like I said, I used it to create this this meetup app, or this meetup group. Yeah, all kinds of, in the future, government programs, just making everything efficient. That's what it does, is it processes data and says, what should we do now? There's a ton of things that, intelligence basically is adaptable to any problem. So we really could point it at whatever we want to point it at, and it would do good, like climate action. Like right now, I didn't put ChatGPT in here yet because ChatGPT is actually bad for the environment right now. If probably everyone in here knows, but when we say cloud computing, that's a server farm, many server farms, and they take a lot of energy. So yeah, I guess another thing I could bring up that's not in these slides is, does everyone know what reinforcement learning is? Like, what's it with human something? You know what it's called? Reinforcement learning, basically keeping a human in the loop, something along these lines. OpenAI, it would be very expensive to hire American workers to do this. So they famously hired Kenyan workers for $2 a day. And it's literally like Facebook and like Pornhub, like content moderation, where they literally just have to go in, find the disgusting stuff, and tell it not to do that for $2 a day. And in order to save money, they intentionally go to like destroyed governments and just kind of exploit the people. But this is normal. This is how you make it even possible or profitable. So like I said, like if we're being optimistic, in the future, things will be cheaper. We won't have to do that. And we actually can use it to optimize things that are cool. And the ultimate dream of AI is, what would it actually look like if no one had to work? Like if we actually just had an abundance and decided to distribute it so that everyone had what they needed. That is actually possible. What would that look like? You don't have to go to work, but you could still do whatever you want. There's problems that could come with that, but I kind of view it as that's kind of what our ancestors have been trying to do the whole time. They've just been trying to make life easier and easier and easier so that we don't have to live in nature.
But our immense
Say it again?
Our immense to have everything and not you have to work.
This is the question.
I
don't know.
wonder what it's going to do to our brain.
I also
Have
wonder.
you ever been on too long of vacation?
Yeah.
Right?
Aimless freedom. It gets boring.
Yeah, it just,
So to summarize, good AI could actually enable these things. Like it could be for human potential and for creative fulfillment, and obviously help scientific discoveries and all these things. It actually could do all these things, and that's why we are building it. That's why we should try and build it right, is because we don't want to just leave these things on the table. But let me tell you why that's not going to happen. So incentives. Yes, we have to maximize shareholder value. That is our only actual incentive. But first, this is a positive view of what capitalism is supposed to be. It's basically an arms race for better user experiences. That's like the dream of it. Is like, theoretically, the only way to make money is to exchange it for something of equal value, or that you consider equal value. And then there's competition. So if you have a product, a better product comes along, I'd rather pay them. And so if you want to compete, you need to make a better product. And the consumer is king. We vote with our dollars, this idea. So in a functioning market, this would actually be a good thing, where we're just increasingly utilizing competition to create better experiences for us, the consumer. But the problem is that all of those incentives are indirect incentives. The only actual incentive we have is to maximize profit. And so this didn't used to be a problem, but I'm going to start to explain why technology is making this a problem. So like when I said money could be exchanged willingly for equivalent exchange. All you actually have to do is make the stock line go up. If you can find a way to do that without selling them anything, that is extremely profitable. And just like I said, it's like competition and innovation leads to, or competition leads to innovation. You can just buy the competition and not worry about making a better experience. And when I said consumers kind of vote with their dollars, the interesting thing about technology is now they kind of view the consumer as just a safe with money inside. And if you could just pick the lock and take the money, that's better. And this example is how that works. So how to just skip all that and get to the profit? Yeah, question. Well, we're not even the consumer. And so this is a perfect example of this. Basically, I'm really into UX, so I'm on LinkedIn, and this guy posted an example of a UX like research that was done. So Google did a hyperlink color experiment. Essentially, Google has hyperlinks like buy now or something, and they tested 41 different shades of blue to figure out which one got clicked more. And the winning hue, it wasn't just like aesthetically pleasing. They boosted revenue by $200 million annually. So this was massively successful. And, so this guy is like a CEO type, and he posted this saying, Google's so smart that they did this. But when I saw this, I said, okay, so Google ran a psychological experiment on people without informing them nor their consent. And the intention of the experiment was to figure out how to manipulate them into buying more things. And it worked. And then they scaled it up to billions of users to make more money.
Oh, they do it on kids.
They do it on kids. Like, the point of UX is to improve the user experience. This did not improve the user experience, it just maximized profit. Like, you just skip it and pick the lock. This isn't possible without technology. And here's another example. This is a short story I call Whoops, I Accidentally Hollowed Out Society. So, you all familiar with this story? Basically, they got AI first, and they said, please maximize my profit. It can kind of maximize anything you want it to maximize. And then the AI basically said, okay, so a good way to maximize profits would be to maximize the watch time of your users, and then you could charge a premium for advertising slots, right? Like that's a reasonable way to maximize profit, nothing harmful about that. But it figured out that the way to do that is just to play to all of our worst impulses, so that now all of us are addicted to the phones. We're all in information silos, et cetera, you know the story. But, I mean, it worked though. Meta went from being worth billions of dollars to being worth trillions of dollars. Like, do you think he cares that any of the other side effects happened? He did what he was supposed to do. And he's not evil. Like, none of these people are evil. This is the problem, is that they're just following incentives. Like, incentives just influence outcomes. Like, we all want to make money. Like, if I found a way to efficiently make money, I would do it too. So this is the problem. It's the incentives that are influencing this. And can anyone tell me why I put this paper clip here?
Just call back to clipping.
There's a famous straw man argument on both sides of what AI can do. Like, tell it to maximize human potential, and it turns the whole universe into paper clips. Like, AI optimists say, like, oh, that's a straw man argument of us, it can't do that. And AI pessimists say, that's a straw man argument of us, that's a silly example, it wouldn't turn us into paper clips, it would do something else. So neither side thinks this is interesting, but it has already happened. This is exactly the paperclip example. He just said, maximize our profits. You asked the genie to grant your wish, and it did something you didn't want it to do. So this is AI 1.0, not nearly as, this is just recommendation algorithms. This is not even close to what we have today. And I think it was like a month ago, Apple released its new iOS, and AI is like deeply integrated into it. Like, I did not expect that. Like, I use ChatGPT, but I didn't know it'd be rolled out into every tech product across the entire industry. So it's like I'm saying, it's not like I think AI is evil, it's that I don't know what's going to happen. Like, we already failed with AI 1.0, so I don't know what's going to happen. So, where are the prophets actually leading us? The AI we're going to get. And for the people that raised their hand and said they're an optimist, I need you to try and have a persuasive argument besides it'll figure itself out. Like, we need to actually have a plans to address these things. And also, this is a very good book about power, and its authors won the 2024 Nobel Prize in Economics, not for this book, but for similar work. And I haven't even finished it, but the sort of premise of it is that what tech optimists think is that technology is progress or directly leads to progress. And they use many historical examples to show how technology just increases our power. And without any sort of political intervention, it doesn't lead to progress. And an example that's personal to me for obvious reasons is the cotton gin. Like, the cotton gin made picking cotton 10 times more efficient so that one person could do the work of 10, but that didn't reduce the need for slavery at all. They just said, oh, let's 10x everything, right? So you needed an amendment to the Constitution to actually lead to progress in that direction without the South becoming bankrupt, you know what I mean? So technology is power, politics is progress. That's why I said techno-optimist, but political pessimist. So here's one example of things that could happen. Hyper-surveillance and loss of privacy and autonomy. I mean, this is already happening. This is China. I don't know if you've heard of this. Has anyone ever watched Psycho-Pass, the anime? I'm just into sci-fi. It's basically a future society where, like a smart city, basically. And the idea is to prevent crime. They use mass tracking and AI to decide if someone is like a latent criminal, like they might commit a crime. And then they go take them out of society and rehabilitate them. And then when China rolled out its social credit system, everyone said, oh, that's happened in real life now. Like basically there's cameras everywhere and they recognize you by your face and you get social credit the way we get regular credit. And it affects all the ways in which you can interact in society. If you have low social credit, you like can't travel, you get bad interest rates, you like can't live at this place, etc. Now this is China, obviously way more authoritarian than we are, but not to be conspiratorial, China just does it up front. Like if America wanted to do it, they just wouldn't tell us that they were doing it. And robo-taxis, this is interesting because again, it's not a bad thing. I think it was Elon Musk that said that self-driving cars don't have to be perfect, zero casualties. They just have to be better than humans, right? So something like 30,000 people die from car accidents every year. If robo-taxis got good enough to only 3,000 people died, that's an order of magnitude better. We're saving lives. Why won't we do it? But the problems with robo-taxis in implementing them is like we were talking about with the other versions of AI, like as long as you stay within its domain of competence, everything's perfect. And then there's a ton of things that it can't predict. So one way to mitigate that would be to get rid of human drivers and have like a networked grid of robo-taxis that are all communicating with each other so they know not to crash into anything. So that would be extremely efficient public transportation, but the problem is now all of your movement is on the grid. Like it doesn't occur to you how amazing it is that you can just drive somewhere without having to ask permission until it gets taken away. So all of these things, every innovation comes with trade-offs. Sorry for the blurry image, but this is deeply related to Daniel's earlier presentation. This is an article I read a while ago called The Generative Age. And it was basically talking about how, Web 1.0, we were, channels were showing us information. Web 2.0, now we're user-generated content. And the next version would be AI-generated content. And what's great about AI, great and terrible about AI, is that it can be hyper-personalized to every individual. So we have recommendation algorithms dictating what we see, right? Like I want to see stuff that I know I'm going to like. And right now it's filtering through user-generated content. But what if it just generated the thing that it knows I would like? So we're already in information bubbles. If we started doing that, we would be fully in all entirely different realities. But we would want it because it's better than user-generated content. It's exactly what you want to see. So it's like a super stimuli where a super stimuli is like something that is like a hack to your brain. Like a famous experiment is like I think it was like a baby monkey was shown like a metal version of a mom, and it had like a certain sound or certain shapes or something that was like a super stimulus to the baby monkey, and so it always chose it over the mother, which led to developmental issues, and things like this happen with humans, super sugary and fatty foods are basically a super stimulus to us, where when food was a lack or scarcity, you have to eat as much as possible right now because you won't have it later. And now food is in abundance, so we still eat. We're still evolved to seek out hyper, fatty foods because we might not have it later, but then we also have it later. This is a super stimulus. So yeah, this basically all the problems we have with being in different information spaces gets exacerbated if we just hyper-personalize it with AI. And on that level is decaying human interaction and social structures. So this is like a representation of like AI companionship. This is like an app that's currently trying to be like AI girlfriend, obviously not there yet, but the idea is like talking to people is scary and you don't want to do it. It's hard to learn how to do. What if you could just have a companion that you know won't offend you and will do whatever you say, or dial it so that it perfectly like doesn't do what you want, so that it feels like a real person, only just enough that you like it, you know what I mean? So yeah, so if we just start making perfect people, why would we ever talk to real people that are flawed? These are again two examples of anime. These look funny because they're avatars. This is again Psychopaths, where they had basically virtual reality internet. So browsing the internet was like actually like being in a virtual reality space, basically the metaverse. And would this actually fulfill the needs of like face-to-face interaction? Like, if we started making everything virtual, this is from Sword Art Online, another VR thing, where this is what it looks like. You have this like headset on, and you just be in bed, and this is like people that know Sword Art Online and then look into VR. They're like, we're waiting for it to be like this, where it's on your head, and it just interprets your brain signals. You're not like awake using things. It's like you're in the thing, and so you're not moving. It's like like how your brain shuts your motors down while you're asleep. So you're just in bed, logged into the computer, and living in a fantasy world that would be too irresistible to not do, but then everyone is like this. In the show, a lot of people get trapped in this game, and so they all have to be transported to a hospital and be put on like IV fluids for like 2 years while they're stuck in there. So this is like trying to give us what we want is not like necessarily good for us. Like, you have to eat broccoli. You can't always eat ice cream, you know? But if you're just catered to, you're gonna choose the ice cream every time. And I wanted to end with, at least end the bad outcomes with automation. Because this is a big topic. A lot of people, this is one of the central topics where people think, we'll get rid of some jobs and new jobs will be created. And some people think, no, we're actually getting rid of like the number of jobs. And I think self-checkout is like perfectly encapsulates this to me. So we have cashiers. No one wants to be a cashier. You don't make any money and it sucks. But that is a job that people need. And once you have self-checkout, it's not that we got rid of cashiers. It's that now one cashier can do the job of 8. And so now now you only need one cashier. You don't need to hire the other 7. And even knowing this and thinking, oh, maybe this is bad for society, I will still choose self-checkout because it's more convenient for me. Like, this is all just incentives. No one is bad in this process. We're all just doing what's natural for us. And there's even a more extreme version of this that Amazon tried to do where they had no employees in the shop, and it was all just, you have a question?
Well, after
Yeah. The shop they tried was, they used cameras to track people around the store and weights on the shelf to track what they picked up, so that once you left the store, you didn't even need to check out. It just charged your card because it knew what you bought. So no one in the store at all.
you know, plot twist with them.
I think it didn't work, but
Well, it was that, there was a building in India where they had like people actually monitoring, like the AI was basically, it was like people outsourced in India that were watching.
oh,
Yeah.
see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is a common critique of AI. Like, this is a common critique of AI that I don't even know all of it. Is that it seems to hide human labor. Like it's supposed to be like, oh, it's just this thing that we've made and it does it all itself. But there's all kinds of human labor that we don't see behind it. But you had a question.
See, so me being a pessimist, right? That in the past, the technology that would say, well, we're getting rid of all these cashiers, but it's an opportunity for you to go get retrained, learn new skills, and get a more meaningful job, right?
Maybe.
But now the discussion is quite the opposite, because when you listen to the CEO of Google or NVIDIA
Mm.
or Microsoft, they're saying, well, the jobs that are not going to be here are the meaningful jobs.
Yeah.
So the humans are devoted to do the boring stuff.
Yeah. It's harder. It's harder to make an AI do spatial stuff. Everything involving intelligence, that's exactly what it's built to do. So yeah, it'll be the managers, it'll be the coders, it'll be the film artists. Like, it'll do all the stuff that intelligence takes. And
That's my biggest fear. I became a data scientist because I like the stimulus, like the mental stimulus.
mm,
I don't want that job to go away just
right,
for me to be doing boring roofing.
exactly.
In the middle of Tennessee.
And like the thing about incentives is like there's 3 ways to make money in a business, right? There's charge more, gain more customers, or make it cheaper to make, right? So we don't it's just culturally that we consider making it as cheap to make as possible a good thing. Like, that doesn't have to be what we consider maximum efficiency. If we looked broader and we're like, no, what we want is not for this company to make the most money. What we want is for goods and services to be distributed throughout society. Then the AI would be intentionally made to augment human labor, not to replace it. But if profit is the only incentive, then we have to replace the human labor. That's how we make it cheaper. Because again, it's like no one's evil in the situation. Like, if stuff's cheaper, I mean, stuff's more expensive right now, and we're all complaining about it. I would like for things to be cheaper, but
Like Walmart said,
Nope.
save money a little better.
mm, so yeah. Unfortunately, I am a pessimist about these things. I do think that like this is just where profits would lead us, and stuff is already happening. But yeah, this is one of the bad outcomes I was meaning to mention was like scams and information warfare and things. In that video we watched first, one of the things they brought up was one of the things that you brought up was being able to copy someone's voice and image, and it was like, oh yeah, well, think of all the like spam phone calls we get and all the spam emails we get. Like, we're trained not to believe it, but like my grandpa gets mad every time he gets a call because he thinks someone's trying to get him to buy something. Now, what if they called him with my voice and said, I need money?
Yeah.
Who is that not going to work on? Like,
All those deep fakes.
and again, it's like, but it doesn't invalidate all the cool uses you were talking about. Like, that's the paradox here, is that we want the good stuff. How do we actually mitigate all these bad outcomes too? So, Can we do anything about it? So,
Thank you, John. After
oh yeah, thanks for coming.
the.
Yeah. There's only a few slides left. So, but I basically wanted to return to the beginning, say like, this is true that AI is extremely profound in like changing our like place in the universe essentially. And who is making the technology? Most of the skeptics aren't even tech people, and the pessimists are saying to stop making it. So that only leaves optimists as the people making the technology. So of course they're going to accelerate it. This is in their best interest. They think it's going to be a good thing. Again, no one's evil here. And so, I mean, since I don't think anything political is going to change, this is the solution I came up with. We need to change the psychographics of who makes our technology. You know, obviously, when it comes to diversity, we've put so much emphasis on demographics, which is important. But the real importance of demographics is to have a diversity of psychographics, which is like what you think and how you think. So, if you're in Silicon Valley and you're on a board of directors, if they're ethnically diverse but all techno-optimists, this is not diversity of thought. They're all thinking the same thing. They're in the same socioeconomic class, etc. And people hate technology. Like, everyone that's not into this stuff thinks it's just evil. And they, like, I talk to people, I talk to like creative people a lot, and they think, there's so many people that are just like, return to no technology, like no internet, I'm off social media, I hate AI. Like, so they're not engaging in the cultural conversation that is dictating what's gonna come, because it's going to come. And they need to like have a voice in that. And so this is my hobby horse, is that art is not this frivolous activity, like, just look at a painting and move on. It's not about that. It's engaging in the cultural conversation, especially new media art, which I don't have examples in this, but I can show you stuff later, is like, it's using cutting edge technology and showing us the possibilities of it, and showing us the potential problems that we haven't thought of yet. It's like literally engaging in the cultural conversation. It's using technology in a way that's not maximizing profits, to show us the cool things that we can do with it and the bad things that might come of it. And but it's also not a commodity. So I'm not saying that this is a new job for you to get and exploit yourself for money. It's more important than both of those, but I understand how hard that makes it when all of us have limited time and attention. But this is my plea, is that we need to be using this technology for art to actually explore what is possible, positive and negative. And to the artist, I would say that technology is not arcane or evil. They either think it's impossible to understand, I could never do it, or they think it's evil, just stop making it. But technology is literally what defines like us as humans. It's like one of our defining features is making tools. Like stone tools are a technology, fire is a technology. Almost everything around us is a technology that someone invented. This is what we do as humans. And it's just all advancing and advancing. And now we have computers, and now we're trying to give our computers intelligence. This is a natural progression of things. It's what we do. So it's literally an extension of our humanity. So I don't know why everyone doesn't do it. Like, you can just make a small like script to do something for yourself that has no purpose, or has purpose in your life and can't be like abstracted to a full company, but it's just useful that you made that thing. So yeah, make technology, make art. This is why I called it the New Media Arts Collective. It's because basically that is what it is art plus tech is new media. And so I wanted to make this group to have people basically engage in that cultural conversation. So yeah, I think that's it.